Alright! My wife is laughing because she told me not to say alright, but I 100% did. How you guys doing? Welcome to episode 10.
Number 10!
Yep, it's a big day. I mean, 10 doesn't feel like a lot because it's like 10, and you know, I have that many fingers on my hand. But at the same time, 10 podcasts, man. It took us a minute to get here. Didn't know if we'd make it or not. And
I knew we'd make it.
Oh, you did?
You have faith, Tyler.
Oh, yeah? Gotta have faith. There were many a week I didn't know what we would talk about. So, yeah. Here we are.
But we managed to find things to talk about, and I think we will still continue to do that.
Probably.
Here we are.
Alright, you ready to do this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the Bowls of Life podcast. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Virginia. As we've gone through life, we've learned something important.
Life is messy. There are a lot of armchair experts out there who will try to tell you how to make life simple.
It's not, so you won't find any of that here. Instead, you'll find everyday people who have jumped into the mess of life and are making an adventure of it.
Nailed it. Alright, so we're going to jump in with a segment we call Rapid Fire Questions, and we're going to even add a timer to it to make sure they're actually rapid this go round. So we're going to set this dude for a whopping 5 seconds.
Alright.
Are you reading them?
Yep.
Alright, well then you get the timer.
Oh, okay.
You gotta time me.
Okay. Wait. How do I do this with two hands?
You have two hands. That's how
Alright,
you do it.
ready? Name 3 words that rhyme with cat.
Bat, rat, mat.
Good job. I don't know how to make it start over.
Hit cancel.
Alright.
Yep.
We should have practiced this.
That's okay. We're learning it in the moment.
Okay.
You can
Name 3 movie theater snacks.
Popcorn, Coke, chocolate.
Alright. Name 3 reasons to jump.
I'm scared because I can, because someone told me to.
Okay.
Counts.
Name 3 cities.
Pearl, Jackson, Brandon.
Name 3 reasons to dress up.
Because I can, because someone told me to, because I want to.
Alright, I'm foregoing the timer. You're doing good, but it's too much thought. Okay. Name 3 pieces of money.
Coin, paper, check.
Name 3 reasons to talk loudly.
I want to, I'm right, you're wrong.
Name 3 things you join.
The gym, a team, people.
Meh. Name 3.
You join people at a place. It counts. You won't argue me.
Okay. Name 3 things you have to dry.
3 things I have to dry. Clothes, car, pet.
Okay. Name 3 reasons why you like spring.
Pretty weather. I don't like spring that much. It's okay. It's whatever.
Okay.
It's fall.
Name
That's
3
what I'm looking
heroes.
for.
Name 3 heroes.
Batman, Nightwing, Superman.
Name 3 reasons you go to the doctor.
Sick, you're sick, Luna's sick.
Alright, my turn.
Alright, let's go. You ready?
No, but let's do it.
Alright. Name 3 things you take to the beach.
An umbrella, a chair, and a towel.
Name 3 animals that can swim.
A fish, a dolphin, a whale.
Name 3 field trips.
To the zoo, to the museum, to the beach.
That was close. I'm going to give it to you. Name 3 Italian foods.
Pasta, pizza, marinara.
Mm.
That was so basic, but
Yeah, well,
I worked at an Italian restaurant. I should have been better at that.
yeah, it's okay. Name 3 things that float.
A boat, a life jacket, and a floaty.
You were over 5 seconds. I'm sorry.
You weren't timing me.
I am. I'm counting every time.
Okay.
Name 3 people who are taller than you.
Graham Slater, my dad.
Accurate. You are the shortest person in your immediate family. And you're fairly tall. So,
Yeah.
congratulations.
I'm taller than my mom.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah. I
You
think so.
say so.
Or we're about the same.
Name 3 things that need batteries.
My insulin pump, remote control, and
It took too long. Moving on. Name 3 things a clown does.
he laughs, he bops his nose, and he falls down.
Name 3 Halloween costumes.
Oh gosh.
Name 3 school supplies.
Pencils, markers, erasers.
Name 3 things with whiskers.
Cats, dogs, bunny.
Name 3 things people shouldn't do while driving.
Reading, texting, eating.
Time up. Name 3 places you go on vacation.
The mountains, another country, the beach.
All right. Final question.
Okay.
Name someone you've been with for 15 years.
Been with? What do you mean by been with?
Been in a relationship with.
Like a friendship?
No! Like, together.
Like, dating?
Yeah, that one.
There's only one.
You have to name it, or you get the question wrong.
It's you.
Oh, okay.
It's Tyler.
Yeah, you have. As of the day we're recording this, we have been together for 15 years.
Yes.
We started dating at 13, which means more of our lives have been spent together than not.
That's right.
Yep. It's weird when you say that out loud a little bit.
Yeah, it is.
Mm.
Which I mean, like, people can say that, like, much later in life.
Right. Most people don't say it at 28.
Right.
Yeah.
Most people, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 2005, y'all. That's when we started dating. Which, if you heard the first podcast episode, we actually talked about that. But today is our little dating anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
October 16th.
It's the day that Virginia said, sure.
No, I said okay.
Okay. Was it okay?
Okay. Yeah.
Close enough. Same difference.
Wow. Long time.
I didn't even get a yes. I got an okay.
Yup.
As a matter of fact, I had to push for a yes when I proposed. You just kind of were like, at me a little bit. And I was like, is that a yes? And you're like, yes. Had to push for it. You were just going to throw another okay at me.
Okay, I'll settle.
Yep. I love it. What are we talking about today, Virginia?
Well, we are talking about something that I thought was really important. And I'm prefacing what we're talking about here.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so what we're talking about today is something that I kind of came across on another podcast I was listening to. But it's actually a topic that I think we hear about a lot in many different ways, on many different platforms, many different hashtags. And it's just how you are taking care of yourself, otherwise known as
self-care. Yep, absolutely. You kind of brought this up a week or two ago, kind of talked about some of it here and there. I think you're probably going to put some terms and some clear definitions on things that I've probably had conversations with people about, but maybe not used clear categories and definitions for it. So I'm interested in hearing you talk about some of that. So, yeah, let's get it rolling.
Yeah, so I don't know how clear my definitions will be.
Oh no, they're clear. There's no muddy or gray anywhere.
Yeah,
that's what I'm betting on.
I'm the type of person that just there's no 100% right answer sometimes. There is for a lot of things like Jesus. But you know, like I can sometimes be a little like not absolute with some of my answers. So just be aware that I'm like that. So anyways, I want to talk about self-care, and I think we hear about self-care a lot, and we think a lot of times we think, you know, self-care is just like taking part in an activity, or there's a spider on our bed and it's crawling towards me.
It's not even moving.
It's like taking one step at a time.
It's not.
Okay, Tyler's gonna get it. It's gonna be okay. Storm brought it in, I'm sure. Our dog.
Don't blame Storm for things that isn't her fault. She's a very good dog. Don't blame her. All right, Virginia, self-care.
Yeah.
How do you take care of yourself when a spider is coming at you?
You ask your dog or your husband to get it.
All
and
right.
that's a real story, because when I see a spider, a lot of times I call Kal-El, which is our dog, one of our dogs, to come get it, and he totally does. He saves the day every time. Sometimes he eats it, but most of the time he just kills it. Tyler just smashes it.
Yep, true story.
Yeah, so that's how I take care of myself when a spider is around.
when you have other anxious things in life or things kind of coming at you, how do you take care of yourself? What does it even mean to take care of yourself?
Well, it depends on the person. And so that's what I wanted to get to. So self-care, you hear, people saying, self-love, self-care, take care of yourself, fill your cup up. You can't pour out into others if your cup is empty, those sorts of things. And I think we're living in not only just like a very self-centered world, but there is a line where like self-care can be beneficial, and there's also a line where self-care or what we think is self-care, maybe it's we're thinking of self-care wrong, and it's not so healthy for us, or not beneficial for us, or even doing what we think it's supposed to be doing.
All right, so how do I designate what self-care is versus what's unhealthy, maybe self-centeredness?
So I think we'll kind of go into that today, but before we get there, I think I wanted to just like think about like why is this such a trendy thing? Because for one, yeah, self-centeredness is probably part of it. Like, I think that might be where the worldly culture part is coming from. But right now, okay, so it's 2020. We have been dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm sure a lot of people are dealing with a lot of feelings. Maybe a lot of feelings they didn't expect, or maybe the feelings have been amplified, like anxiety or loneliness and depression. Maybe just stress, depending on your situation. Maybe it's just like isolation is really causing some feelings within you. So lots of things that people are probably feeling this year. I mean, wouldn't you say?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's why it can be really applicable right now, but it's always applicable. Learning about self-care.
Yes.
And how to do it right. So, how do you differentiate between what is self-centered self-care
And what's healthy for you?
and what's healthy for you?
Yeah.
I think really, what are some things that you can do that will fill you up or will allow you to tend to yourself before you tend to others, or tend to yourself after you've tended to others. If you're a person who's like really pouring out into other people, if it's your job or, your mom or dad. So tending to yourself before or after you've tended to other people so that you can fill your cup up. So it's got to be things that like actually fill you up, things that you enjoy, but also that are considerably healthy for you. And so that's really hard. Like, that's so easy to say, but it's really hard to actually do, because when we say healthy, what does that actually mean? Because healthy, there are so many dimensions to health and wellness that like you can't really, it's really hard to like be healthy in every single one, right?
Yes, 100%. I don't think you can really ever be perfectly healthy in all of them.
No, you can't be perfect in anything. So, so I think really what I wanted to talk about was like, what is self-care for you? So a lot of times we think of self-care as, or I don't want to say that you think of self-care this way, but some people will think of self-care as like coming home at the end of a long day, a long, hard day, and just mindlessly partaking in an activity. So mindlessly partaking in an activity could be watching TV for hours. It could be scrolling on your phone for an unlimited amount of time. It could be eating a meal and not really paying attention to what you're eating, how you're eating it, and how much you're eating. And you're just filling your belly until the point of, over fullness. What are some of the other examples that you would think of?
I think it could be taking any hobby to an extreme, where maybe your whole world is supposed to revolve around that, or at least you feel like it does. Like, for me, if I tried to disc golf every single day, like that would probably be not necessarily healthy self-care. It'd be me running away from some things, perhaps. But yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so running away from things, I kind of like that thought, because that's where the difference between self-care and escapism comes
Mm-hmm.
into play. And so that is so prominent. Like, we instead go to escapism, running away from it, than we do to actual self-care. So I'm a dietitian and a health coach, right?
Right.
So I see a lot of people who we have to deal with stress. Like, a lot of times, it's like we can't deal with some of these things that you're wanting to set a goal around until we deal with like the stress that's going on in your life. So I'll ask a question oftentimes, and I'm like, okay, at the end of the day, at the end of a long day, when you're stressed out, like, what is something that you would consider a stress reliever? Like, what do you do that helps you relieve stress? And a lot of people are like, oh, I watch TV. I just like to get away from it all and just watch TV. And it hit me one day, and I was like, that's not dealing with your stress. And a lot of people are like, when I say that, they're like, yeah, I guess so. Like, yeah, you're literally vegging out in front of a TV, and all you're doing is forgetting about what's stressing you out. Now, is that inherently a bad thing? Not necessarily. But what if you do that every single day and your stress never leaves? Like, how is that handling your stress, right?
Right, yeah. So you're ending up with, you've gotten away from it for a minute, but you didn't do anything to help you with the problem, maybe per se. And it's not even that you've got to solve all your problems. That's not what self-care is.
Right.
Because some problems just literally won't be solved. I mean,
or some stress is just not going to go away.
Yeah. Like, I don't know, a boss or a job that you enjoy, but there's some stress in it. Maybe there's a specific role or task that you've got in it. Like, you might always have that stress to some extent, and that's not necessarily the end of the world, but there got to be some ways to help you manage it, and managing it and learning how to cope with it isn't the same thing as just running away from it and shoving it down and ignoring it.
Yeah, like forgetting about it.
Yeah.
I would bet a lot of people during this season have dealt with feelings or some sort of stress that they just didn't know what to do with. Like,
oh yeah,
how do I manage this? How do I deal with this feeling? And I had a night where I was dealing with something that I just was like, Tyler, I need to talk about this. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. I don't know where it's coming from. But I'm having these feelings, and I don't even know if you remember me doing that. It was early in this COVID thing. But I was like, let me just say it out loud, and it might even sound really stupid, but I just need to get it off my chest. I don't need you to tell me how to fix it. I don't need you to, give me advice. But I just need to sit in it for a minute. And I felt so free after I did that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it was, but just being able to talk to you about something that was like feeling really deep inside of my mind, just it felt freeing to like get it off my chest and let you know that I was struggling with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so yeah, talking it out, definitely super healthy self-care is being able to talk with somebody about it, whether that's a spouse, a good friend, or a counselor.
And I think like the counselor deal, like, you can still talk to your spouse and your friends or a trusted friend and still, need a counselor or want to talk to a counselor.
Absolutely.
It's not like you just need one person to talk to. Multiple facet or multiple like ways you can talk to people can be helpful.
Yep, for sure. I did hate on hobbies, I guess, to an extent a minute ago. I will say that there's a difference in escaping to your hobby and using your hobby as self-care, because you can use a hobby for self-care.
Absolutely.
I think about, again,
like you said, going to that point of like obsessing or too much.
Yeah, so early in the pandemic was, of course, I run our church social media, and so early on, all of us as churches were all running to social media to try and be connected with our people, because we couldn't be in buildings together. And so we were all borrowing ideas from one another, and I won't dive into this whole ordeal of things that happened, but I got called out on maybe over-borrowing something to the borderline of just copying somebody else's thing, which may very well have been true. I might have overdone that, but neither here nor there. But after a couple of weeks of having just been 100% go, 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 and I got that phone call first thing in the morning to talk about it, I got off the phone call. I did what I needed to do to kind of somewhat rectify the situation, and then I turned my phone off and I went and played disc golf for a couple of hours. And it wasn't just to escape the thing. I mean, maybe to an extent, but really it was just to recenter and go, okay, this was just, there was a quick little bump on something that maybe didn't go the way I thought it should go, and now I'm just going to move on. And so it was just a moment to let me catch my breath and then jump back into the mix of life. I didn't start playing disc golf for multiple hours a day for multiple days in a row as a way to get away from my problem. I just took a minute to catch my breath. And I think those are two very, very different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about balance. It's all about,
yes.
And that's everything in life. And
when you say balance, it's not literally there's the same weight on each side of a balance. It's more about finding, it's just something I've heard people talk about, and
yeah.
I've found to be true. You're not going to balance your home life and your work life. That's not the case. There's never a complete balance of those. You find a rhythm that works. You find the right amount of all the things. So you might have 70% work life and for a short season and only 30% home life, and it works in that season, and then you probably need to flip it, and then it's 70% home life, 30% work life for a little while. There's never a true balance,
it's
I
not
would
equal.
say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Finding a rhythm. Yeah, I like that. I hadn't really heard that before. Some other things I've kind of thought about with self-care. How do you take care of yourself? So it's not necessarily like it's some of it's like basic needs.
Yes.
So
100%.
It's not something special that you have to go buy. So it's not about like your resources. In some cases it can be for sure. Like if you're food insecure, like you don't have enough money to get food, then that would be where your resources impacts you. But it's not about going to buy something that brings you joy or value or, sense of self-care. It's literally just like some of it's just like basic needs. Like a hobby is great, but like, are you feeding yourself well? And being the dietitian, I'm definitely going to talk about food a lot, but I talked to a client recently and they said that when they're in stress, they tend to not eat. Whereas some people in stress might tend to mindlessly overeat, and you can go both ways. Even the same person can go both ways. And so it's sometimes just that basic need of like, are you feeding yourself well? Or are you getting enough sleep? Like that's a very basic need. And sometimes stress affects your sleep, like how you sleep. But are there things you can put into place to help you sleep better? Is that trying to go to bed earlier? Is that trying to shut down the TV, turn off the phone? Is it
turning off the phone? Did you say that one?
Yeah, is it turning off the phone?
Is it turning off the phone?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That blue light literally affects your brain and your ability to sleep.
Yeah.
You can look it up. There's research behind it. Turn that thing off well before bedtime.
Right. And a lot of people don't really see the value in like meditation. People think that word is so taboo, but it's just like taking some time to breathe. Like do the 4x4. Breathe in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. If you do that for just a couple of seconds, like just a few rounds of that, like it's amazing the way that you can kind of calm yourself down, especially if you're in a stressful situation. But I just bring that up because that's just another tactic of self-care, just taking a moment to meditate on scripture, meditate on truth, and meditate on your breathing in and out just to calm yourself, especially if you're trying to fall asleep or trying to literally calm yourself in a moment. Yeah, so basic needs can be self-care, like that I think is something. It gets so glamorized by social media, hashtag.
Self-care. It's taking a bubble bath.
With a bath bomb.
Yeah,
and taking a photo of your feet in the water, which is so funny to me.
I don't want to see your feet.
I'm like, you're naked on the other side of the screen. That just weirds me out. But that's okay if you want to do it, whatever. But
but it is a little weird.
It's a little weird. But like, yeah, you don't have to go like buy this glamorous, bath bomb or like go get a massage, even though those are really nice.
Self-care is also not a new vehicle. It's not a new gun. It's not.
Tell about new vehicle, because you're saying this, but you might actually have some experience with that.
100%. Yeah. When we got back from Australia and Virginia was working and I was gnawing my arm off at home, going through what I would not call depression, but is probably about as close to a season of depression as I've ever been. As I finally started kind of getting some interviews, knew I was about to start a new job, I'd spent a good bit of that season thumbing through Auto Trader online because that feels like a healthy thing to do with my free time. I got to this point to where I just knew this new, and not even brand new, because I definitely can't afford anything brand new, but this newer vehicle was just going to make everything so much better. And I got the newer vehicle, and it was a vehicle, and it did the same thing my previous one did. It drove up and down the road.
It also, air conditioner didn't work.
Hey, the air conditioner worked just fine for a couple of years. And now me and that air conditioner are battling it out. And it's fine.
Yeah, so it's not about buying something new. You can continue that.
No, I mean, that was kind of, that's where it was going. It's just because you go, oh, when I get this thing, it's going to make it better. That thing is not going to make it better. It's just not. I don't even care what the thing is. Unless that thing is a basic need like food and water, it's probably not going to make much better.
Yeah. Yeah, unless it's like a tool to help. Like, I mean, and you don't even need those, but it could be like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something you might use to help yourself sleep, like,
yeah.
Or, not an alarm clock, because that doesn't help you sleep, but anyway. So it's not necessarily something you have to buy, and you're probably not going to be taking care of yourself by buying a new thing. We can talk, like, even, so TV, I talked about TV a minute ago. I did want to talk about this, my own experience. We watch a lot of TV, okay? We've talked about that.
Yeah, we do.
We like to watch TV, and actually, side note, guess what we started recently?
We started Lost.
We started Lost, guys.
Yep.
If you know anything about Lost, you know that we just lost ourselves to Lost.
Yeah. I know enough to know where it's going. I've watched some bits and pieces, but admittedly have never watched through it. Our friend Hannah Anthony is now freaking out.
If you're listening
to this, Hannah, we are watching Lost now.
Yeah, so we can bond with you a little bit more.
Yep.
But anyways, so we watch a lot of TV, and that's just such an easy way to escape. Okay. And it's not necessarily healthy because, again, you're not dealing with what is going on. I tell people all the time that you can, as a health coach, not just like telling people, I'm like, if you got something going on that's causing your behavior, so this is, we could walk through this. This is what we walk through. I'm like, okay, you have stress in your life, whatever it is. We can't get rid of it. So what are we going to do that's going to be a healthy behavior? So what are some things that we have to be aware? So what are some things that like behaviors or thoughts that come into your mind? I can't remember all the aspects of it that I learned, but it's like what behaviors manifest because you're stressed or you're dealing with depression or you're dealing with whatever. What thoughts manifest when you are dealing with these things? Stress. It's almost like a cue, like your symptom of stress or depression or anxiety or whatever. And then what physically manifests. So like physical manifestations could be like a headache or stomach ache, problems with your gastrointestinal system. Anyways, thoughts, behaviors, and physical manifestations that can happen as a result of stress. And so that's kind of how, when you're aware, that's kind of how you can see those symptoms, and then you can kind of like deal with them. Okay, like deal with your stress. And not that you're, again, getting rid of it, you're just finding ways to take care of yourself.
So, if I heard you right, you're saying we need to just start to learn what we do in high stress situations.
Yeah.
How we respond to it.
Yeah.
So start to look and see what that looks like in our life.
Yeah.
And kind of start to create mental flags, I guess you could say,
Yeah.
to where if I start doing this thing, or I start feeling this way, or I start thinking this type of thing, chances are I'm in stress, and I need to find a place to de-stress.
Yeah. Or a way to
de-stress.
Not
yeah,
to cope with that stress in a healthy way.
Yep.
Anyways, so that's I'm talking a lot here, but that's kind of just one way, being aware and then figuring out what your signs and symptoms are, and then how you can cope with it healthily. So I was talking about TV and I got off on that, but just for me, there was one night, and I can't remember what exactly it was I was very anxious about, but it was something I think that was happening the next day. And normally when we watch TV, I'm like, okay, it's bedtime after however many episodes it takes to get to bedtime.
I'm not. I'm like, let's
depending
go
on the show. Yeah, Tyler's like, I can watch all night. And so I have to be the one that's like, okay, time for bed. So normally after a couple, it's time to go to bed. And this one night that I was super anxious about something, I kept saying, one more. And I mean, we didn't watch that many, but I just remember, I had the thought, I think I said it out loud. I was like, when I watch TV, I don't have to think about it. And I know if we go to bed, I'm going to think about it, and I'm going to be plagued with my anxious thoughts, trying to go to sleep, and I can't. So we just kept watching TV. And so, whereas instead maybe I could have, done some deep breathing, really just given it to the Lord in prayer, just kind of done that sort of thing, which I won't say I didn't do any of that. It was obviously something I prayed about, but, I was just trying to escape it in the moment. I was like, I don't even want to think about it. But it was almost subconscious. I didn't realize it until later that that's what I was doing. I kept just saying, let's keep watching. So self-care, there are different ways you can do it. You kind of have to find what works for you. And I think we're going to kind of touch on that in just a second. But what are some biblical things about self-care? Where in the Bible can we find things about taking care of ourselves?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tyler's our expert here.
Expert, sure. So let's talk about Elijah for a minute. A lot of people are familiar with the story of Elijah calling down fire on, I believe it's Mount Carmel. So he's there. He's had the prophets of Baal. They've been going all day, 400 of them, trying to get Baal to send fire from heaven to burn up this offering. And Baal never shows up. So Elijah builds his altar, puts his offering on it, drenches it in just a ton of water, and is like, hey, God, burn it up. And fire falls from heaven. I can only assume to be a meteorite, but maybe it was literally just fire with nothing. I don't know. But I like to think it was a big meteorite and just crashes into it and it burns it all up. So this is a huge, awesome moment where he gets to go, look, Yahweh is God, Baal is nothing. He can't even hear you because he's not legit. And so it's this huge moment. He takes off literally sprinting, outruns a chariot, and gets to call down rain for the first time in 7 years in the nation of Israel. So it's just huge stuff happening. And then that's the stuff everybody knows. What happens next, we don't talk about as often, because it's not cool and glamorous. Elijah runs and hides in a cave, basically, because Rahab? Yeah. Not Rahab. Jezebel. Sorry, yes, Jezebel. Got my names mixed up there. Jezebel wants to kill him for him killing off all the prophets of Baal. And so he goes and he hides in a cave, and God literally is like, bro, take a nap. And so he takes a nap. And then God's like, hey, I'm going to bring some ravens, and they're going to literally bring food and just drop it outside the cave for you. And so he eats a snack. And then this kind of holds on for a minute where he has to rest. And he needs to eat. And then finally God's like, all right, you know the thing you're stressing about? You're stressing that you're the only one who's for me? Dude, I've got this whole remnant of people that I've protected that are my people as well. You're not in this alone. You were starting to feel the weight of something that wasn't even real. You started to imagine this, and you started to build this stress on you, and it wasn't even exactly what you thought it was. He said, so take a breather, eat some food, and then let's get back about the business of telling people the truth of who I am.
Wow.
I mean, that's
I love
self-care
that story.
101. Like, that's
Yeah.
literally, he went through...
Take a nap, eat a snack,
Yep.
you good to go.
Yep. I mean, that's the most basic part. He needed some rest because this stress of literally running for his life for 7 years, it finally broke him.
And I think what's cool is like the number of prophets. I just read this story kind of recently.
Yeah.
But the number of Baal prophets that he was up against was like 400, 450.
Yeah.
So like he by himself is the prophet, to some degree by himself is calling on to the Lord or God. And then it was like 450 Baal prophets. So yeah, I could imagine that he was like feeling like, cool, I'm by myself.
Yep. All right, so I mean, that's self-care 101. Take a breather, kind of let yourself refocus.
Refuel yourself.
Refuel your body.
Whether it's food, water, or
Yep.
sleep. Well, we already said sleep, but yeah.
Yeah. Breathe. And then maybe another thing to check as a believer is to run through the fruits of the Spirit. Peace, love, joy, patience, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control.
You missed goodness.
Goodness. All right.
Goodness.
There's 2 G's, yeah. Anyway, so run through them and tell me where you are. Like, what of those are you feeling right now, and what of those are you super not displaying in your life? Because if you start running through that list and you go, gosh, well, talking with my wife today, there's definitely no love, no gentleness, there was no kindness or patience. Hopefully you were faithful, but I don't know. And you're just running through that list, and if you start checking that you're doing the opposite of those things more than not, chances are you're not in a healthy place right now. Chances are you're letting something, whatever that thing is for you, fight against it. And so fight against that, literally the Spirit of God that's living in you. And so now we got to go, okay, well, what is the thing or the multiple things that is causing this strife, that's causing me to not live out the fruits of the Spirit? And now I got to take a minute. I probably need to catch my breath. And then I need to start looking and going, all right, what is it here and what can I do? You might need to take a breath, and maybe your take a breath is take a nap like Elijah. Maybe it's go and play disc golf for a minute. Like, whatever your take a breath is. But then we've got to move on from take a breath. And then we got to see, all right, what do we do next? How do we start to address what is holding me back from displaying these fruits of the Spirit? What is holding me back from displaying who Jesus is through my life? And we need to take those steps to work towards eliminating whatever those things are.
Yeah, and I think one thing to kind of point out with the fruit of the Spirit, self-control or I like to call it discipline.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know how the word translates, but, you can be you can feel like you're out of control around something, as a result of stress or not taking care of yourself. But I think we have to remember that there is a discipline of self-care. So there is, this level of, I have to do these things before it gets out of hand.
Yes.
So it's not really meant to be a response to, it's meant to be a prevention of, right? It's not like you're going to self-care because you finally run out of gas. No, you're filling yourself up before you get there.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. It's in hopes that you prevent it. A word you'll hear fairly often in leadership type roles is the word burnout. And one of the leadership experts I listen to is also a pastor, a guy by the name of Kerry Newhoff, and he tells the story of how he ended up in a season of burnout. He said, I'm this pastor of a church with thousands of people. We've done all kinds of amazing things, and I go home every day, and I am just exhausted. He said it started to affect me to the point to where I was driving thinking, like, what if I just run off the road and be done with this? Like, he said, I had some thoughts of suicide ideations. Like, it went through my mind. And so because he had never put some disciplines in place to protect himself. He ended up in this burnout, in this place of needing to reset everything, I guess, essentially. And so the goal with self-care is to not end up there.
Yeah.
The goal with self-care is to prevent those kind of things from happening, those kind of seasons from coming upon us. That doesn't mean you're not going to be in stress, but it means when you are in stress that you're not going to have such an extreme reaction to it that you find yourself literally burned out on life.
Yeah, it's to make an analogy for that, it's kind of like you don't drink water because you're dehydrated. You drink water to keep yourself hydrated and to prevent dehydration. So yeah, that's kind of just a way to put an analogy on it.
And I think you can keep rolling with that when you start to think, man, I'm kind of thirsty. That's a flag that something needs to change. I need to put some water in.
Yeah,
and then you take it even, like my mouth is starting to get kind of dry.
And when you're at that point, just to put some science behind it, when you're thirsty, you're already reaching like mild dehydration. So that sign has already come into play to say, we need water. You haven't been watering us. Or me.
Maybe you're not good at reading the sign of I'm kind of thirsty or my mouth is kind of dry. Let's go with what you can check pretty easily. When you go to the bathroom, if you pee and it's real yellow, you need to go chug some water.
Y'all think he's playing. I talk about this all the time with people.
Oh, absolutely.
Literally all the time. I talk about pee.
And so, and the whole point in all of that was to say there are flags you can put in place to know, like, hey, I'm kind of starting towards an unhealthy direction. I need to take care of myself.
And let me stop there and just say, how disconnected are we with our bodies? Y'all, I could get on this soapbox for days, let me tell you. But I'm not. That's another podcast for another day. But just think for a second, how disconnected are you from your own body, that you're not seeing some of these signs, that you're not feeling them, that you're not catching on to them? So that's a place to really start as well. Like, taking care of yourself first and foremost, and then like, what are these signs that I've been missing out on because I'm so disconnected?
So maybe if we're going kind of leaning back to that biblical perspective, maybe the thought process isn't, I look back at my month and go, oh, how did I do it? The fruits of the Spirit. Well, across the month, you can highlight big things and go, oh yeah, it was all right, and so you don't notice it. Maybe it's not even, how was my week? You can still kind of highlight those big things, and so maybe you don't notice some of the flags. It's going, how was my day? Like, during this day, in what ways did I display the fruits of the Spirit? In what ways did I do the exact opposite of the fruits? Maybe we even need to take it to an even more micro spot of, when was that last interaction with another human, and how did I display the fruits of the Spirit there? It's finding those earliest warning signs that we can, those earliest flags that we can, so that we know long before we get to where a real problem actually appears.
I think, we can keep going on this and talk about, I'm going a different lane here than what you were just talking about.
That's okay.
So a little bit, not subject change, but a little bit different lane here. Where do we find, like, ultimate fulfillment and rest? Because on this earth, like, it's going to be really difficult and we're never really going to reach it fully. But with what Jesus has done for us, like, we are able to reach, a rest that will be completed in glory, in heaven. But,
so Hebrews talks about it.
Hebrews talks about rest a lot.
Yep, talks about looking for that place of rest, and that Abraham and the descendants, they were promised this place of rest, and then once even Joshua takes the people into the promised land, they continue to have to look and work and strive to take the land. There wasn't that true peace, that true rest in there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, God even took a rest on the seventh day of creation, or whatever it was.
Yes.
7 days, okay. And then Jesus says to us, "Come, those who are heavy burdened and weary, and I will give you rest." And it's like, okay, how do I tangibly, like, what does that mean? One thing that we've learned recently, we were doing this with our Bible study life group, we were learning about peace and like what that word actually means. And it actually, when you look at it in the, original text or translation or whatever, to be shalom, yeah, to be complete, to be redeemed, to be fulfilled. And like when you see that and you read scripture that says like Jesus is your peace, that is where you find like that peace that surpasses all understanding that we are promised. Jesus, he's the one who gives us ultimate rest. So if you're really dealing with a lot and you're just like, I don't understand how to take care of myself, well, just first like go to the Lord. Just go to the Lord in prayer. Maybe that's a first place to start, and maybe that's where you find out, oh, okay, I haven't been drinking enough water or whatever it is to take care of myself. That's how Jesus with feeding the 5,000, with his disciples. When they did that, he, miraculously made this food from like 2 fish and 3 loaves of bread, or whatever it was, turn into food that fed 5,000 plus people. What was left over at the end? There was enough to feed every single disciple.
Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't just enough to feed every disciple. One of them, I don't remember which gospel talks about, but they had like 12 baskets left, meaning they all had a to-go plate.
Right. They all had enough and plenty.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So Jesus, made that happen for them. And he can make it happen for you in just day to day. So we're going to take a second, just take a quick break, and we're going to come back and just give you some practical tips, tricks, and things you can do to practice self-care biblically. So, before we go into the practical tips, I wanted to give some practical examples. Like, I feel like we've given plenty.
Sure.
But I made a little chart one day, and it just really kind of helps. I think it even just, like, helps myself, kind of like when you catch yourself on one of those signs, and you kind of say, okay, what am I doing? And what could I do that might be, self-care? So, like, scrolling mindlessly on your phone can be a sense of, like, escapism.
How could that possibly be escapism, Virginia?
Right. So you're just like looking at everybody else's business and lives, and maybe even it's just like, like I said before, it could be positive things. You might even be feeling good about some of the things that you're reading, which is really hard on social media these days. But you might be having positive experiences and thoughts, but you're just scrolling mindlessly, and so you're not really paying attention. And maybe you have some things that you need to deal with, that you're escaping from. Maybe it's a conversation you need to have with your spouse or with your child, or maybe it's your child's been very fussy and crying today, and you just want to get away from it. Take a moment. So, one practice of self-care could be prayer and scripture. I think just like we scroll on our phone really easily, and so is that time that you could be spending in prayer, or in a devotion, reading the Bible, and just getting to know the Lord more. And I'm speaking; these are things that came up in my own life, So these are my own things. So taking a nap or going to sleep earlier would be a practical self-care thing, rather than staying up, and you could say scrolling on your phone again, but watching TV for hours. Doing something that's keeping you from taking care of yourself by going to sleep at a decent time. I think self-care can also be, moving your body more to feel better. So whatever type of physical activity or exercise that looks like for you, rather than just keeping yourself so busy with tasks. I'm so busy, I have all these things to do, or because we kind of say like it's almost like a crown to wear, or like a badge of honor to be busy. We're busy all the time. Are you so busy that you're not even able to like take care of yourself, or are you just being and here's a word that really hits me, lazy. I hate that word because I don't want it to describe me, but it does very often. What about, here we go talk about like isolation. So you could isolate yourself in your home, especially right now. Like, it's an easy out. Like, that's probably been the most frustrating thing about this season is that not everybody, but a lot of people are taking the easy way out to get out of meeting with people or going to church or meeting with groups. But like, you're just isolating yourself and joining a life group or a Bible study, or actually like going and meeting in person with people in a safe, obviously, or whatever, COVID. But like actually meeting with other people, because no matter what, we're humans, we're made for community. Oh, and here's one I think we just so often, and this is the healthcare person in me coming out, but just assuming everything's okay. Like, I'm good. I've been having these issues with my stomach or my head or whatever, but everything's fine. Everything's fine. Or you could actually go to the doctor on a regular basis and get a checkup. That's like a basic need of self-care. Going to get yourself checked out. Like, are you actually okay? I'll talk about this because I'm a dietitian. I always bring up food, but like eating to get, energy and nourishment rather than eating out of an emotional or stressful reason. Kind of facing those emotions rather than turning to something like food to help you feel better. So those are some practical ones that I think we could really like resonate with. There might even be some more that you guys have experienced. I think of people who turn to like alcohol or drugs or pornography, like go to get real dark, real deep, real fast. Like, those are some things too that people deal with as a coping mechanism or a way to deal with their stress. But that's not obviously helping the situation. So I mentioned very first off, like prayer, scripture. We really think that's, a first thing to turn to when you want to kind of take care of yourself in so many words. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, 100%.
All right. So I have one little activity that you can do to help yourself practice self-care in a healthy way and try to weed out the things that are not caring for yourself. And it's actually a therapy method that I learned recently in a training, and it's called behavioral activation therapy. So it's called that because it's a therapy that helps you activate behaviors. Behavior activation therapy.
Makes sense.
Really interesting. It's like a form of cognitive behavioral therapy. If anybody out there is like in counseling or wellness coaching, motivational interviewing type things, you got what I'm saying. So write down 5 small things. We're thinking small here. 5 small things that fill you. Okay, fill you up. And write down 5 small things that drain you. And I say small because, like, if your job drains you or if a family member drains you that you can't get away from, like, that might not be the best, like, use of your time to write that down. So 5 things that fill you and 5 things that drain you. And then look at your schedule for, like, the next week. And try to fill in your schedule 1 to 2 things that fill you. Okay, so put into your schedule 1 to 2 things that fill you. So, like, Tyler, what would that be for you? What's something that fills you?
1 to 2 things?
Yeah, just pick 1 to 2.
I mean, I've mentioned disc golf several times. That's definitely a fun one. That'll fill me just to get away from some things for a minute. I do enjoy a good video game session.
Okay, so 1 to 2 things. You could schedule that in your week because you know it fills you up. Anything else?
I mean, hanging out with you and Luna tends to be filling.
Yay! I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, unless y'all are really just, Yeah. But that's far and few between.
Right. Okay. So, for me, I like to walk. Walking is really helpful for me physically, mentally. The sun is awesome. So it's nice to get out in the sun, even if it's nighttime, like we went on a nighttime walk. For me, physically, that is just really good for me. So a walk, and I wish I could do those every day, but it doesn't happen. One other thing, I like to do crafts. So right now my thing is macrame and weave. So putting those in my time as well. So schedule that in your week. Okay, so that's the first part of the activity, or the scheduling part of the activity. Okay, so the second part would be, can you modify the things that drain you? So like I said, there might not be things you actually like get rid of, like you stop doing, but can you modify them in a way that would drain you less? An example? Let's see. Something that drains you that you could modify. We're like trying to use real life examples here. Right now we're actually going through a social media fast with our church. And so Tyler, I know social media drains you in the sense that you run the social media for our church, and you have a lot of work to do with that. So I'm sure sometimes that can be kind of draining, but you're not actually having to do it right now. So
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely got some extra time in my workday at the moment that I'm not doing that. I do also use a decent amount of pre-made content, or content I can draw some ideas from, so that I'm not having to come up with fresh ideas every single time something is posted. I can lean on some other people, take inspiration from other people, so that it's not all on my shoulders.
Yeah, it's not draining to like have to think of every single thing. So you find ways to use your resources. That's a good example.
Yep.
Okay, so just practical ways that you can try to schedule something in that fills you, and modify, if you can, take it away or take a break from it, something that drains you. And sometimes we don't realize things might be draining us, so that might be where you kind of check in with yourself. Like, is this draining me? Is this filling me up? How do I really take care of myself in this situation? So there you go. There's a nice little behavioral activation therapy for you.
Okay, tell it to me real quick. Like,
all right,
we talked about it from a lot in detail. Hit it with me real quick.
Write down 5 things that fill you, and write down 5 things that drain you. We're thinking small here. Choose to schedule 1 to 2 of the things in your week that fill you. And can you modify the things that drain you? And if so, try to modify them so that they drain you less.
Good stuff. I like it. So, big practical is to find some things that I enjoy, find some things that drain me, see if I can add some of the things I enjoy and cut down on some of the things that drain me.
Yeah.
I like that. I need to look at my life a little bit and go, okay, what activities am I doing that I'm really just running away from my problems, and see what I can do instead to kind of fill myself back up so that I can start to address some of my problems. So I heard that one from you. And then maybe from biblical perspective, a lot of those things that potentially are draining me might be because I'm not in a place where I need to be with Jesus to be able to approach these different situations from maybe his perspective. So instead, I'm looking at it from my worldly perspective of, I've got to work twice as hard so that I can make the money to get the thing that I want to have, so I look like the people on social media or the neighbors or whatever, when instead I should be going, okay, Jesus, what can I do to make the money I need to provide for my family, to then spend my other time trying to point people back to you, because I know you're the thing they need, because you're going to be the shalom, the peace that they need, in the same way that you are the shalom and the peace that I continually need.
Yeah, so seeking Jesus for guidance, but also to share the burden. Like he does help take the burden off of you, when you can trust that the Lord is in control over you, over your situation, and that he loves you and wants you to be taken care of.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. Hopefully this was helpful for you. Maybe you sat down and went, I understand the concept of what self-care is. It's taking care of myself. But how do I take care of myself in a way that is it's good for me. It's good for the people around me, and it's not just me running away from my problems, but it's me addressing how I can be healthy and still live in the midst of some of these problems that aren't going to go away. And I say problems, maybe I should more say stressors. Some of these stressors that aren't going to go away from your life. So how do I live in them in a healthy way? Thanks for...
And how do you seek Jesus in it all?
Yes.
It's really, I think the goal here.
Yes, 100%. So thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Let us know any thoughts you've got. This is the part where I tell you, make sure you subscribe to our podcast so that you are notified every time we drop a new episode. And as of right now, that's every Friday. So just turn up every Friday and we should be here. Give us a rating wherever you listen. Write a review telling us about how much you love us and how awesome we are and how excited you are that we made it all the way to 10 episodes. Huge accomplishment. Thanks for joining us on this journey, and we will see you guys again soon.